When was the last time you considered the story of Peter, the disciple who walked on water? If you're anything like me, well, it's been too long. Let's fix that right now. There's a moment in the Bible that's so wild, so bold, that even people who don't know much about Scripture have probably heard of it. It's the night Peter walked on water. Now, let's be clear. He didn't manage a casual stroll across the Sea of Galilee like it was a sidewalk or something along those lines. No, it was messy, frightening, faith-filled, and deeply human, which is exactly why it speaks to us today. It happened right after one of Jesus' most famous miracles, feeding over 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The crowd was amazed, but Jesus didn't stick around to soak up the applause. Instead, he sent his disciples ahead by boat while he went up a mountainside to pray. Out on the lake, the disciples found themselves in trouble. A storm rolled in, and the wind was fierce. The waves were battering the boat. These were experienced fishermen, so if they were scared, you know it was bad. Then, in the darkest hours before dawn, something unbelievable happened. Through the mist and the spray, they saw a figure coming towards them, walking right on top of the water. The reaction? Sheer panic. They thought it was a ghost, but then came the voice they knew so well. "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." That's when Peter, the bold one, the one who always seemed to speak before thinking, called out, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." Notice what he didn't say there. He didn't say, "Calm the storm first." He didn't say, "Can you come to the boat instead?" No, Peter wanted to be right where Jesus was, even if it meant stepping into something completely impossible. Jesus gave him one simple word. He said, "Come." And Peter did it. He climbed over the side of the boat and stepped onto the water. For a few incredible moments, Peter, a fisherman who had spent his life in boats, actually walked on top of the waves. Can you imagine that? No life jacket, no safety net, just him and Jesus in the middle of a storm. He didn't walk on water because he had superpowers. He walked because he was focused entirely on the one who had called him, Jesus. But here's where it gets real. Peter looked around. He noticed the wind was whipping his clothes, the waves rising around his legs. The moment his focus shifted from Jesus to the storm, fear took over. He began to sink. In desperation, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" And instantly, not a second later, not after a lecture, instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Then came the gentle question, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, it's easy to criticize Peter. People say, well, he sank. But let's be honest. There were 11 other disciples who never even left the boat. Peter was the only one who knew what it felt like to have his feet on the waves. Can you imagine that? Even in his sinking, he experienced something extraordinary because he was willing to step out. The story isn't just about Peter, it's about us. We all have boats in our lives, places that feel safe, familiar, and predictable. It could be your job, your routine, your comfort zone. And sometimes Jesus calls us to step out into something uncertain, to start that business, to forgive someone, to share our faith, to take a risk we've been avoiding. The thing is, storms don't always stop the moment we take that step. Sometimes the waves get higher, the wind might get stronger. But faith isn't about the absence of trouble. It's about keeping our eyes on Jesus in the middle of it. Peter walked on water as long as he was focused on Jesus. When he looked at the storm, he started to sink. Isn't that how it works for us too? The moment we start focusing on what ifs and how could this work, instead of the one who called us, fear, well, it takes over. But here's the good news. Sinking doesn't mean failing. When Peter started to go under, he didn't drown because he called out to Jesus, and Jesus didn't let him sink to teach him a lesson. He grabbed him immediately. That's the heart of God. Even when our faith falters, his grip on us, it doesn't. So, what does this mean for you and me? Maybe you're standing on the edge of a decision right now. You feel God calling you to step out of your boat, but it's scary. The winds, well, the doubt keeps blowing around you. The waves of uncertainty are high. Everything in you says stay where it's safe, but the voice of Jesus is saying come. And here's the thing. The miracle isn't just that Peter walked on water. The miracle is that Jesus was right there in the middle of the storm, making it possible. The same is true for you. If he's calling you out of the boat, he's not sending you alone. If you think about it, Peter's story didn't end with a storm. It ended with him walking back to the boat with Jesus, storm still raging around them. And when they climbed in, the wind died down. That's the order sometimes. Obedience first, calm later. So maybe it's time to ask yourself, what's my boat? What's the place I'm clinging to for safety that might actually be keeping me from something amazing? And maybe it's time to pray that same prayer that Peter prayed, simple, desperate, and powerful. Lord, save me. Or maybe, Lord, help me to step out. Peter's walk on the water reminds us that courage isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about trusting the one who calls us more than we fear the storm. And when we do that, when we step out, we might just find ourselves doing something we never thought was possible. So when you hear his voice calling in the middle of your storm, don't just sit in the boat. Take that first step. Keep your eyes on him. And remember, even if you start to sink, his hand will always be there to lift you back up. Take care, my friends, and God bless.